They always say the truth shows up uninvited, usually when someone thinks they've won. For me, it arrived the moment the room went dead quiet. My dad lifted his glass like he was about to bless the evening, like he was the patriarch of some respected family instead of a man who'd spent his whole life pretending one of his kids didn't exist. But the blessing never came. Some kids make you proud, he said. Others just take up space. Laughter exploded around the table. Mason smirked like the joke belonged to him. My mother looked down, her fork tracing the same invisible line on her plate like she could disappear if she kept moving. Me? I smiled, slow, steady, too calm for their comfort. Good thing I just got my own place, I said. 5,000 meters away. Silence. Thick. Immediate. Forks frozen midair. They thought that was the plot twist. They had no idea what I'd already uncovered, or what I was about to expose. People think childhood wounds fade when you grow up. Mine didn't. They calcified. Our home in Indianapolis looked sweet from the outside, maple leaves turning gold every fall, neighbors waving from trimmed driveways, kids biking past like a Norman Rockwell painting. But inside, pride had a shape, a direction, a gravitational pull, and all of it orbited my brother. Mason's football trophies lit up the hallway like a shrine. Dad polished them every Sunday like a ritual. My certificates? Crammed into drawers under old manuals. When I brought home a science award once, Dad said, "That's nice, Nora. Don't make your brother feel bad." A lifetime of cuts disguised as compliments. Death by 1,000 polite knives. Mom wasn't cruel, just terrified. Always stirring pots that didn't need stirring, folding napkins that didn't need folding, whispering, "Just let it go, sweetheart." Like peace was something I owed them. Her silence taught me the ugliest lesson. My feelings took up too much space. Maybe that's why the basement became mine. Metal, dust, safety. Broken radios, cheap keyboards, scorched soldering wires. Machines didn't play favorites. They only cared if you listened. Grandma Ella Laner listened too. Warm pastries in her hands, warmer eyes on my projects. "You see the world differently," she'd say. "Don't let anyone tell you that's wrong." She always said it like softness was something rare and endangered, something she had to sneak into my life before my house chewed it up. By 18, I had mastered being quiet and useful, Dad's preferred combination. When I got into a top engineering program, he didn't look up from the newspaper. "That far," he muttered. "Figure it out yourself." So I did. Nights at a diner. Days in labs. A backpack. A scholarship letter no one clapped for. I kept thinking distance might make him see me, but distance can't fix what someone refuses to look at. Which brings us back to the table. Thanksgiving. Dad's glass raised. His voice slicing the air. Some kids just take up space. If you've ever waited your whole life for someone to choose you, you know the heartbreak isn't in the words. It's in realizing they mean it. I should have cried. I should have argued. I should have begged for the version of him I never once met. Instead, something in me clicked. Quiet, steady, final. The kind of click a lock makes right before a door swings open to a place you've never been brave enough to enter. The kind of click that means one thing. I was done being the daughter who took up space. And they were about to learn exactly what happens when the quiet one finally stops being quiet. Keep watching, because the secret I uncovered didn't just change me. It tore our entire family clean open. They expected me to laugh it off, to shrink, to stay small. Instead, something inside me clicked into place. Quiet, steady, undeniable. Not rage, not shock. Something colder, cleaner, final. I lifted my glass and let my smile stretch slow and real. Nothing like the pretty, harmless one I'd perfected all these years to keep the peace. "Good thing I just got my own place," I said. 3,000 meters away. The words floated out calm, almost gentle, but they cut through the dining room like a blade wrapped in velvet. Then I added, even softer, "You'll never have to make space for me again." Forks froze midair. A chair squeaked. Even a kid stopped whispering. My father didn't look ashamed. He looked irritated, like I'd ruined his choreography. Like I'd stepped outside the script he'd written for me since the day I was born. Mason blinked, caught between habit and confusion. Should he laugh? Should he defend Dad? Should he protect the hierarchy that had always crowned him king? He didn't know. He never had to. I set my napkin down slowly, like I wasn't walking away from a family, but from a fiction. Thanks for dinner, I said.
Calm.
Controlled. Unshakable. My mother whispered my name, fragile, barely audible, as if calling me too loudly would invite the explosion she'd been avoiding her whole life. But I wasn't walking away to make a scene. I was walking away because, for the first time, I saw that table for what it truly was, a map of who mattered and who never would. Outside, the air slapped me awake. Cold enough to sting, sharp enough to clear every lie I had swallowed. The Hale house looked exactly the same as it had my entire childhood, but suddenly it felt smaller, almost fragile. Like a place built on cracked foundations, I finally stopped pretending we're solid. Behind the front door, I heard their muffled voices shift from confusion to annoyance to dismissal. The usual pattern. They'd tell themselves I was dramatic, ungrateful, sensitive. But not one of them followed me out. Not one called my name. That silence, that was the truth. I drove through the empty streets of Indianapolis, and memories unspooled in perfect order, like my brain had been waiting for permission to stop protecting them. Mason blowing out candles on a cake that spelled out "Starve Our Home," while my birthdays passed with supermarket desserts and rushed goodnights. Dad pacing every sideline of every football game, but forgetting the date of my robotics competition, even though I taped the flyer to the fridge. Mom smoothing tension instead of speaking up, teaching me that being quiet was safer than being seen. I had always known the pattern. Tonight, I stopped pretending it might change. By the time I reached the hotel I'd been staying in, the grief had thinned into something sharper. Something cleaner. Hurt had turned into clarity. Leaving wasn't the ending. It was the beginning of a boundary no one at that table believed I was capable of drawing. Up in my room, I pulled out my phone and opened the message thread I'd been avoiding for months.
Grandma.
I typed, "I'm in town. Can I see you tomorrow?" Her reply came in minutes, warm, immediate, like she had been waiting for the chance to hold the version of me that finally stopped apologizing for existing. Of course, sweetheart. For the first time that night, my lungs loosened. I lay in the dark, replaying Dad's words, take up space, and felt something rise in my chest. Not anger, not sorrow, resolve. If I was space to them, then fine. I would build something inside that space they wouldn't be able to ignore. The next morning, I met Grandma at a small diner, the kind with chipped mugs, endless coffee, and biscuits that made the whole place smell like a memory you wanted to stay inside forever. She waved as soon as she saw me, her silver hair catching the light like a quiet kind of magic. She didn't ask what happened. She just took my hand across the table and said, "You look tired, Nora. Not in your face, in your spirit." I swallowed hard. She always saw me in ways that felt like being held and exposed at the same time. We talked for hours about Seattle, my projects, the tiny apartment I'd turned into a home with a dining table that finally offered equal seats to everyone who sat there. When I showed her a picture of it, she smiled and whispered, "Equal seats. Good girl." Only then did she ask, gently but firmly,
"So,
what did he say this time?" I repeated Dad's toast. Her eyes closed, and for a long, trembling moment, she didn't speak. When she finally did, her voice shook, not from age, but from the weight of everything she'd watched me survive. "You deserved better than that since the day you were born." Hearing that from her hit deeper than my father's insult ever could. It didn't sting, it settled.
Solid. True.
After breakfast, we drove back to her house. She moved slowly now, leaning on the railing, but her spirit, God, her spirit burned the same as when I was 10, and she taught me how to solder my first circuit. Inside, her house smelled like lavender and old books, the kind of scent that makes you feel like time has been folding itself gently around someone. Photographs covered the walls. Weddings, birthdays, holidays, smiling faces. Almost none of them included me. Not because she forgot me, but because no one ever thought to bring a camera to the moments I existed in. We sat on the sofa, and she rested her hand over mine. Your father, she said quietly, has always confused control with love. He built a world where only one child was allowed to shine. And Mason? I asked, though I already knew. He never questioned the spotlight, she said. Why would he? It never burned him. She didn't need to ask how much it burned me. That afternoon, she fell asleep in her chair, soft breaths rising and falling like a rhythm I wished I could bottle. While she napped, I wandered through her living room, fingers brushing over memories she'd lived alone. On her desk sat a thick folder. Bills, payment statements, check stubs. Nothing alarming. Nothing improper. Just the quiet evidence of someone aging. Someone managing too much by herself. Someone whose choices had been slowly taken from her by a man who called that love. Standing there, I felt something settle in my chest. I wasn't going to leave her the way he left me. When I returned to Seattle the next week, the city met me with its familiar gray mist, a soft exhale I didn't know I needed. My apartment felt different. Not like a hiding place, like a declaration. I hung new curtains, rearranged furniture, bought fresh flowers. I built my life in small, intentional acts, ones no one could distort or dismiss. At work, the opportunities stacked up. Projects that required precision, long nights, steady nerves. I delivered every time. I didn't call home to brag. I didn't send updates hoping for praise that would never come. I let the work speak for me. Seattle wasn't an escape. It was the blueprint of who I was becoming. When Christmas came, I planned a dinner, not for people connected to me by blood, but for the ones who had shown up for me without condition. My neighbor who fixed my heater in a storm. My professor who still believed in me. My coworker who drove me to urgent care at 2 a.m. A strange, mismatched, beautiful group. But when they sat at my long walnut table, every chair the same height, every person treated equally, something loosened inside me. A new kind of family. One I built. One that chose me. The photos from that night, warm lights, warm faces, me laughing at the head of my own table, were meant for memories. I didn't know they would travel all the way back to Indianapolis. I didn't expect them to rattle the very people who once convinced me I took up too much space. 3 days after Christmas, while I was cleaning up the last of the dishes, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in months. For a moment, I considered letting it ring. But something, instinct, fate, unfinished business, made me answer. My father didn't even say hello. He snapped, "The whole town's talking about you." I leaned against the counter, still holding a dish towel. About me? Those pictures, he hissed. Your little Christmas gathering. People are saying you've replaced your real family. Your cousin posted some sentimental nonsense about how Nora finally built her own table. Do you have any idea how that makes us look? There it was. Not concern. Not curiosity. Not even anger. Image. I kept my voice steady. I didn't post anything. You didn't have to, he shot back. Those photos are everywhere. Your mother can't even go to the store without someone asking what happened between us. That sounds like a question you should have answered years ago, I said quietly. The line went silent. Thick, charged, heavy with every truth he refused to face. Then he said, low and controlled, "You embarrassed us." I almost laughed. Embarrass them? By having a warm dinner with people who cared enough to show up? By smiling, God forbid, in a photo? By refusing to sit at the kids' table for the rest of my life? Before I could respond, another voice rose in the background. A softer one. Older. Nora, sweetheart? My throat tightened. Grandma, I'm here. I saw the photos, she said, her voice trembling, not with anger, but with something tender. It looked beautiful, honey. Dad cut in sharply. Mom, stay out of. No, she said, firm and clear. You've controlled this family long enough. It was like hearing glass crack. She kept speaking directly to me. You built something gentle, something safe. That's nothing to be ashamed of. I closed my eyes. Thank you. My father started pacing. His footsteps thundered through the speaker like they were stomping across my ribs. You think you can just run off, make a show of independence, and act like we're the villains? I opened my eyes. Dad, you lifted a glass and told a room full of people that I'd take up space. That was a joke. It wasn't, I said softly. And you know it. He inhaled sharply, and suddenly his tone shifted. Less bark, more bite. You're coming home for New Year's Eve. We need to fix this. There was a time those words would have made me feel obligated.
Small. Guilty.
Not anymore. I'm not coming back to that house unless we sit at the same table, I said. Equal seats. No head of the table. No hierarchy. If you want a conversation, that's the condition. Silence stretched, thick as wet cement. Then he said, fine. I didn't expect that. The next day, my parents arrived in Seattle. The knock on my door felt like a pulse, sharp, steady foreboding. When I opened it, they stood there like ghosts from a life I barely recognized. My mother couldn't meet my eyes. My father's gaze darted around my apartment, searching for something, anything, to criticize. Nice place, he said, as if the words scraped his throat on the way out. I didn't give him room to twist the moment. Dinner's ready. The long walnut table stretched across my dining room, illuminated by soft lamps and the glow of the city outside. 3 chairs. All identical. No head seat. My father noticed. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. We sat. My mother complimented the meal. Her voice was thin, like she was afraid the air itself might snap. My father ate in silence, chewing like he was grinding gravel. He glanced around at the photos on my walls, me with colleagues, with friends, with neighbors. People who chose me. People he didn't know. People he'd never asked about. I didn't apologize for that. Halfway through dinner, he finally spoke. So, you're doing well. I set my fork down. I am. And you didn't think to tell us? I met his eyes. You've never wanted to hear it. He looked ready to argue, but something, maybe Grandma's voice still echoing in his head, made him slump slightly in his chair instead. Maybe we didn't do everything right, he muttered. The understatement of a lifetime. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Nora, we never meant to make you feel less. I didn't soften. Not yet. Intentions don't erase impact. Dad's jaw clenched. We protected Mason. He needed more. He needed more, I said, because you handed him everything. And I learned to survive alone. His mouth opened, then closed. For the first time in my life, he looked small. I didn't shout. I didn't attack. I just told the truth I'd been carrying like a stone inside my chest. You told people I'd take up space, I said quietly. But I built a life 3,000 miles away from you. I built my own table, my own family, my own peace. My father flinched, not dramatically, but enough that something in his armor cracked. Then, in a voice I barely recognized, he whispered, I didn't know how to love you the way you needed. My father's words, I didn't know how to love you the way you needed, hung in the room like smoke. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I'd imagined this conversation 1,000 different ways. His shouting, my retreat, my mother crying in the background. But not this. Not honesty. Not quiet. I swallowed hard. Dad, I didn't need you to be perfect, I said. I just needed you to see me. His eyes flicked up, wounded, confused, almost young. I thought if I kept everything in control, everything ordered, I was doing the right thing, he said. Structure is how I survived. It was the only way I knew to protect you. Protect. The word cracked something inside me. Protect me from what? I whispered. He blinked. Not at me, past me. Like he was looking backward. From becoming your grandmother, he finally said. She was too soft. She let everyone walk over her. I didn't want that for you. My throat tightened. Dad, you didn't raise me to be strong. You raised me to disappear. The silence after that was sharp enough to cut skin. My mother wiped her eyes with the corner of her sleeve, but she didn't speak. She just nodded, slow, painful, honest. She'd been complicit. Quietly, but complicit. My father leaned back, fingers digging into the armrests as if he needed to hold himself steady. "I failed you," he said. The simplicity of it made it real. For the first time in my life, I didn't rush to comfort him. I let the truth sit where it belonged. In his lap, not mine. "I'm not asking for perfect," I said softly. "I'm asking for effort. For presence. For respect." He nodded once, jaw tight. "I can try." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. When they left my apartment, there was no tension, no cold front, no unfinished explosion hanging in the air. Just quiet. A quiet that didn't scare me anymore. But the real twist didn't come until the next morning. My phone buzzed as I stood by the window with coffee in hand. A text from Mason. "We need to talk. Call me." I almost laughed. After months of silence, after years of being shoved to the side, so he could shine uninterrupted, now he wanted to talk? I didn't respond. Then another message appeared, longer, rushed. "Nora, Dad told me everything. I didn't know he said that about you taking up space. I didn't know he talked about you like that when you weren't around. I didn't know. Just call me, please." I stared at the screen, heart thrumming. Because behind those messages, tucked beneath the guilt and panic, was the truth. He wasn't reaching out to apologize. He was reaching out because for the first time in our lives, he finally realized the spotlight wasn't following him anymore.
It was following me.
I set the phone down untouched. Seattle breathed quietly outside my window. My home. My air. My life. I whispered to myself, steady as a vow. Some people lose you the moment they realize they can't use you. Then the camera would fade to black. If you've ever had a moment where someone only noticed your worth when it stopped benefiting them, tell me in the comments. And subscribe because the next chapter? It's where Nora finally confronts Mason, and trust me, you do not want to miss it.